Extraterrestrial Sentinel Part 1, The Thaw. The ice caves of Seven were old. They were older than most civilizations in the galaxy. Deep inside these caves, frozen in blue ice that had not melted in over 1,000 years, stood something that made every visitor stop and stare. It was a machine, but calling it just a machine was like calling a star just a light. It stood 40 meters tall, covered in armor that looked like it was grown rather than built. Its body was a mix of metal and something that looked almost alive. Crystal eyes, dark and dead, stared out at nothing. Its massive hands, each one big enough to crush a small ship, hung at its sides. This was a sentinel, the last sentinel. Built by the Empire over 2,000 years ago, it had been a guardian, a protector, a weapon of terrible and beautiful power. They had made these machines to defend those who could not defend themselves. Then they had died in a great war, and their sentinels had died with them. All except this one. This sentinel had not died. It had simply stopped. During the final battle of the war, something had gone wrong with its power systems. The machine had frozen in place, its mind trapped in an endless loop, neither alive nor dead. The ice had grown around it over the centuries, and it had become a statue, a monument, a reminder of things lost. The Galactic Preservation Authority had built a museum around it. They called it the Tomb of the Last Guardian. Millions of visitors came every year to look at the frozen giant and wonder what it had been like when it walked and fought and thought. But the Preservation Authority had also tried to wake it up. They had tried for 600 years. They were the first to attempt a restoration. They were masters of biotechnology, creatures of tentacles and vast intelligence who had been building living machines when most species were still learning to use fire. They sent 3 teams of their best scientists into the cave. The first team got too close, and the Sentinel's defense systems flickered to life for just a moment, just long enough to kill everyone. The second team was more careful. They spent 50 years studying the machine from a safe distance. They mapped every system, every circuit, every strange biological component. Then they tried to restart the power core using a carefully calculated sequence of energy pulses. The Sentinel's eyes glowed for exactly 2 seconds. Then everything went dark again, and half the equipment in the cave melted. The third team gave up and went home. After them came the Syndicate. The Syndicate was not a species but a collection of species, united by their love of commerce and their mastery of quantum technology. Their engineers were the best in the galaxy. They looked at the Sentinel's fusion core and announced that it was corrupted beyond theoretical repair. What this meant, in simple terms, was that the core existed in more than one dimension at the same time, and the different parts of it were not talking to each other properly. The Syndicate tried to fix this by building a machine that could reach into multiple dimensions at once and align everything. The machine exploded. No one was hurt, but the Syndicate declared the project impossible and left. Over the next 700 years, 15 more species tried to wake the Sentinel. Some of them were brilliant, some of them were desperate, some of them were just curious. All of them failed. The Preservation Authority eventually declared the Sentinel untouchable. It was too dangerous to work on, too valuable to destroy, and too mysterious to understand. It became just another exhibit, another wonder of the ancient world that modern civilizations could admire but never replicate. Then the humans arrived. Humanity had only been traveling between stars for about 200 years. They were new to the galaxy, still learning the rules, still making mistakes that older species found amusing or annoying. Their technology was crude by galactic standards. They were short. Their history was full of wars and disasters that more advanced civilizations had overcome long ago. But there was something strange about humans, something that the other species had noticed but could not quite explain. Humans did not know when to give up. The colony ship Perseverance was making a routine stop at Seven for cultural exchange. This meant that the crew got to visit the museum, while the captain negotiated trade agreements with the local government. Most of the humans walked through the exhibits in a group, listening to the tour guide explain the history of each artifact. Maya did not stay with the group. She was 26 years old, a junior engineer from the Martian Technical Institute. Her job on the Perseverance was to maintain the atmospheric processors, the machines that kept the air breathable. It was not a glamorous job. It was not even a difficult job, most of the time. Maya spent most of her days fixing small problems and waiting for something interesting to happen. When she saw the Sentinel, something interesting finally happened. She stood at the base of the frozen giant and looked up at its dark crystal eyes. The tour guide was saying something about the tragic history of the Empire, but Maya was not listening. She was looking at the holographic displays around the exhibit, the ones that showed the diagnostic data from all the failed restoration attempts. She was an engineer. She could not help it. When she saw a broken machine, her brain automatically started trying to figure out how to fix it. The displays showed centuries of analysis. They showed the corrupted fusion core, the frozen neural matrix, the feedback loops that trapped the Sentinel in endless sleep. They showed the conclusions of 17 species, all saying the same thing: this machine cannot be repaired. Maya looked at the data for a long time. She looked at the solutions that had been tried. She looked at the theories that had been proposed. And slowly, a small frown appeared on her face. "That's not right," she said quietly. The curator, a mass of purple tentacles in a floating chair, drifted over to her. "I am sorry, young one. Did you have a question about the exhibit?" "The core," Maya said. "Everyone keeps saying it's corrupted, but that's not what I'm seeing. It looks more like it's stuck." The curator's tentacles rippled in a way that Maya would later learn meant amusement mixed with pity. Many visitors have theories about the Sentinel. The actual science is quite complex. "No, I mean," Maya pointed at one of the displays. "Look, the fusion core and the neural matrix both have emergency restart protocols, and they both triggered at the same time during whatever happened 1,358 years ago. So now they're both waiting for each other to finish starting up first. It's a deadlock, a loop." The curator stared at her. "That is an interesting theory, but the greatest minds in the galaxy have studied this problem for centuries." "Maybe they were overthinking it," Maya said. She looked back up at the Sentinel's frozen face, and she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt curious. She felt excited. She felt like she was looking at a problem that actually needed solving. "Is there an archive?" she asked. "Somewhere I can look at all the restoration attempts in detail?" The curator's tentacles rippled again. "There is a restricted archive, yes, but access is limited to authorized researchers." Maya smiled. It was not a polite smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found something interesting and had no intention of letting rules get in the way. "How do I get authorized?" Extraterrestrial Sentinel, Part 2, Unauthorized Genius. Maya did not sleep for 3 days. The restricted archive was a vast underground chamber filled with holographic displays and data crystals from 100 different species. Getting access had been easier than she expected. She had simply asked her captain to make a request during the trade negotiations, and the Preservation Authority had agreed. They probably thought it was amusing. A human engineer, barely out of school, wanted to study the problem that had defeated the greatest minds in the galaxy. Why not let her waste her time? But Maya was not wasting her time. She was learning. She read everything. She read the reports, written in a biological language that her translator struggled to process. She read the syndicate analyses, full of quantum mathematics that made her head hurt. She read the notes from 15 other species, each one bringing their own perspective, their own assumptions, their own failures. And she began to see something that none of them had seen. The problem was not that the Sentinel was too complicated to fix. The problem was that Everyone assumed it was too complicated to fix. They had approached the Sentinel as a living thing. They had tried to heal it, to nurture it back to health the way they would nurse a sick creature. But the Sentinel was not alive, not really. It was a machine that used biological components, but it thought like a machine. It followed rules. It had systems and subsystems, inputs and outputs, and when something went wrong, there was always a reason. The Syndicate had approached the Sentinel as a quantum puzzle. They had tried to solve it with elegant mathematics, with theories about dimensional folding and probability waves. But the Syndicate's engineers were too smart for their own good. They had looked at the fusion core and seen something impossibly complex, when really it was just a power source that had gotten stuck. Every species had made the same mistake. They had looked at the Sentinel and seen a mystery, a wonder, a problem beyond their understanding. Maya looked at the Sentinel and saw a machine that was broken, and broken machines could be fixed. On the second day, she found what she was looking for. It was buried in a technical manual that had been translated badly into 6 different languages. Most researchers had ignored it because the translation was so poor that it barely made sense. But Maya was used to reading poorly written technical documents. Half her job on the Perseverance was trying to understand instruction manuals that had been translated from Mandarin to English to Spanish and back to English again. The manual described the Sentinel's startup sequence. It explained how the fusion core and the neural matrix were supposed to work together, each one checking the other before coming fully online. And it described a manual override that could be used if something went wrong. There was a physical switch. Not a button, not a holographic interface, just a simple mechanical switch that would break the connection between the two systems long enough for them to restart independently. Maya stared at the description for a long time. Then she started laughing. The switch was located on the Sentinel's left shoulder, inside a small access panel. Every species that had studied the Sentinel had seen this panel. They had mapped it, analyzed it, written papers about its ceremonial significance in culture. None of them had thought to open it. Maya wrote up her analysis that night. She explained the feedback loop, the deadlock between the fusion core and the neural matrix. She explained how the manual override could break the loop and allow both systems to restart properly. She explained that the problem was not dimensional corruption or biological decay or any of the other complicated theories that had been proposed. The problem was that 2 systems had crashed at the same time, and they were both waiting for each other to wake up first. She sent her analysis to the Preservation Authority with a request for permission to attempt a restoration. They rejected it in less than an hour. The message was polite but firm. Maya did not have the credentials or experience to work on an artifact of this importance. Her theory was interesting but not supported by established research. The authority thanked her for her enthusiasm and suggested she continue her studies at a proper institution before attempting such ambitious projects. Maya read the rejection 3 times. Then she read it a 4th time just to make sure she understood. They were not going to let her try. She sat in the archive for a long time thinking. She thought about her job on the Perseverance fixing atmospheric processors day after day. She thought about the Sentinel, frozen in ice, waiting for someone to wake it up. She thought about all the species that had tried and failed, all the brilliant minds that had given up. And she thought about what would happen if she did nothing. The Sentinel would stay frozen. It would stay frozen forever because no one else was going to try. Everyone had already decided it was impossible. Maya did not believe in impossible. She stood up, gathered her toolkit, and walked out of the archive. The ice cave was dark at night. The museum was closed, and only a few security lights illuminated the frozen giant. Maya had disabled the alarm on the service entrance earlier that day, telling herself she was just exploring. Now she walked through the shadows, her toolkit over her shoulder, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this was wrong. She knew she could be arrested, deported, maybe even imprisoned. The Preservation Authority took the protection of artifacts very seriously, and what she was about to do was the opposite of protection. But she also knew she was right. She had read every report, analyzed every theory, and she was sure. The Sentinel was not broken beyond repair. It was just waiting for someone to flip a switch. She reached the base of the frozen giant and looked up at its dark eyes. 40 meters of ancient war machine, covered in ice that had not melted in over 1,000 years. Everyone in the galaxy said it was impossible to wake. Maya started climbing. The ice was slippery, but Maya had grown up on Mars, where everything was either too hot or too cold and nothing was ever easy. She had learned to climb before she learned to walk properly in Earth gravity. The Sentinel's body was rough, covered in ridges and handholds that made the climb almost manageable. It took her 20 minutes to reach the shoulder. She was breathing hard, her fingers numb from the cold, but she had made it. The access panel was right where the manual said it would be, a small rectangular plate on the inside of the shoulder joint. She opened it. Inside was a mess of frozen cables and connectors, covered in ice crystals that sparkled in the light of her. And there, in the middle of it all, was the switch. It was exactly what the manual had described, a simple mechanical lever that would disconnect the neural matrix from the power grid. Maya pulled out her toolkit and got to work. The cables were frozen solid, and it took her almost an hour to clear enough ice to work. Her fingers were so cold she could barely feel them, but she kept going. She disconnected the neural matrix input, just like she had planned. Without that connection, the fusion core would not be waiting for the matrix to initialize. It could start up on its own. Then she would reconnect the cable, and the matrix would boot up using the already running power supply. Simple, easy. The kind of solution that any first-year engineering student would think of if they had not been told that the problem was impossible. Maya looked at the switch, the manual override that 17 species had ignored because they were looking for something more complicated. She thought about all the reports she had read, all the theories, all the failures. She thought about the curator and his rippling tentacles of amusement. She thought about the rejection letter from the Preservation Authority. And she smiled. "Watch this," she said. Then she hit the switch with her hammer. Extraterrestrial Sentinel Part 3, Awakening. The switch clicked. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Sentinel began to hum. It was a low sound, so deep that Maya felt it in her bones more than she heard it with her ears. The ice around the giant's chest began to crack. Light appeared in the cracks, a warm amber glow that grew brighter with each passing second. Maya grabbed the cable she had disconnected and held it ready. Her plan depended on timing. The fusion core needed to complete its startup before she reconnected the neural matrix, or the whole thing would crash again. The humming grew louder. The cracks spread across the Sentinel's body, and chunks of ice began to fall away. Maya pressed herself against the shoulder plate, trying to stay out of the way as 1,000-year-old ice crashed to the ground 40 meters below. The light in the Sentinel's chest blazed bright, so bright that Maya had to look away. She felt heat on her face, real warmth after hours in the freezing cave. The fusion core was working. The power was flowing. Now, Maya jammed the cable back into its socket and prayed. The humming stopped. For one terrible second, Maya thought she had failed. She thought the whole system had crashed again, that she had wasted her chance and would spend the rest of her life in a galactic prison for destroying an ancient artifact. Then the Sentinel's eyes lit up. They were beautiful, crystal structures filled with amber light like captured stars. They flickered once, twice, 3 times, cycling through colors that Maya had no names for. Then they settled into a steady glow, and Maya knew, she knew with absolute certainty, that something was looking at her. The Sentinel moved. It was slow at first, just a twitch of the fingers, a slight turn of the head. Ice fell away in great sheets as joints that had been frozen for over 1,000 years began to work again. Maya clung to the shoulder plate, her heart pounding, her breath coming in short gasps. The giant straightened. It rose to its full height, 40 meters of ancient war machine standing tall for the first time in 1,358 years. Maya felt the power in it, the strength, the terrible and beautiful purpose for which it had been built. And then it spoke. The voice was like thunder. It filled the cave, echoed off the ice walls, shook the ground beneath them. Maya felt the words in her chest, in her teeth, in every part of her body. Unauthorized activation DETECTED. Identify yourself. Maya's mouth was very dry. She had planned for a lot of things, but she had not planned for what to say to an ancient war machine when it woke up and demanded to know who she was. "I'm Maya," she said. Her voice sounded very small after the Sentinel's thunder. "Maya, I'm human, we're new." The crystal eyes turned to look at her. She was still clinging to its shoulder, a tiny figure on a giant's body. The Sentinel studied her for a long moment, and Maya felt like she was being scanned, analyzed, measured in ways she could not understand. "Human," the Sentinel said. "Species not found in Coalition records. Origin." "Earth," Maya said. "Sol system. We've only been traveling between stars for about 200 years." Another pause. The amber light in the Sentinel's eyes flickered rapidly, and Maya guessed it was processing information, searching through databases that had not been updated in over a millennium. 200 years, the Sentinel said. There was something different in its voice now, something that might have been surprise. "Your species has achieved interstellar travel in 200 years. Is that fast?" The Sentinel did not answer immediately. Its head turned, looking around the cave, taking in the museum that had been built around its frozen body. The holographic displays, the observation platforms, the security systems that were now flashing red warnings. "This unit was inactive for 1,358 years, it said. In that time, 17 species ATTEMPTED restoration. They all failed." "I know," Maya said. "I read the reports." "You read the reports." The Sentinel's eyes focused on her again. "And then you succeeded where they failed." "It wasn't that hard," Maya said. "They were all overthinking it. The problem was just a feedback loop. I broke the loop." "You broke the loop." "With a hammer." The Sentinel was silent for a very long time. Maya hung from its shoulder and waited, not sure if she should say something else or just let the ancient machine process what had happened. Finally it spoke again. Its voice was quieter now, less like thunder and more like distant rain. "The RI are masters of biotechnology. They have been building living machines for over 1 million years. They could not repair this unit." "They were trying to heal you like you were sick," Maya said. "But you weren't sick, you were just stuck." "The Syndicate are masters of quantum engineering. Their mathematics can describe the shape of reality itself. They could not repair this unit." "They thought your fusion core was corrupted. It wasn't. It was just waiting for your brain to wake up first." The Sentinel reached up with one massive hand. Maya flinched, but the hand moved past her, touching its own chest where the fusion core still glowed with amber light. "You are very young," it said. "Your species is very young. You do not have millions of years of knowledge. You do not have ancient traditions of science." "No," Maya admitted. "We're pretty new at all this." "And yet you succeeded." I looked at the problem, and I thought about what would make sense. If I were an engineer building a machine like this, I would want a way to restart it if something went wrong. So I looked for that way, and I found it." The Sentinel lowered its hand. Its eyes met hers, amber crystal looking into human brown. "The VLORINS were MYCREATORS, it said. "They built this unit to protect those who could not protect themselves. For 1,358 years, this unit failed THAT purpose. This unit slept while EMPIRES rose and fell. That wasn't your fault, Maya said. You were stuck. This unit was stuck, the Sentinel agreed. And now this unit is awake, because a young human with a hammer refused to believe that this unit could not be fixed. It reached up again, and this time its hand came toward Maya. She tensed, but the touch was gentle, impossibly gentle for something so large and powerful. The Sentinel lifted her from its shoulder and lowered her slowly to the ground. Maya's legs were shaking when her feet touched the ice. She looked up at the giant standing before her, 40 meters of ancient war machine, the last guardian of a dead empire, awake for the first time in over 1,000 years. BYVLOR and protocol, the Sentinel said. This unit now owes you a life debt. You RESTORED this unit's function. This unit is bound to serve you until that debt is repaid. Maya blinked. What? No, that's not. I didn't do it for a reward. I just did it because it needed to be done. That is why the debt EXISTS, the Sentinel said. You did not act for gain. You acted because you saw a problem and chose to solve it. This is the HIGHEST form of service. Before Maya could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the cave. Red lights flashed from every direction, and she heard the sound of ships approaching, the whine of security vehicles coming to investigate the disturbance. The Preservation Authority had finally noticed that something was wrong. Maya looked at the approaching lights, then back at the Sentinel. This might get complicated, she said. The Sentinel's eyes glowed brighter. This unit has extensive experience with complicated situations. For the first time since she had started climbing, Maya laughed. It was a tired laugh, a scared laugh, but also a happy laugh. She had done it. She had actually done it. Okay, she said. Then let's go explain to the galaxy that you're not a statue anymore. The Sentinel straightened to its full height as the security forces arrived. Its voice rolled across the ice cave like the voice of a god. This unit is DESIGNATED Guardian Class Sentinel, serial designation 7 Alpha 9. This unit has been RESTORED to function by Maya CHEN of the human species. This unit ACKNOWLEDGES, a life debt and CLA mess alliance with humanity. In the stunned silence that followed, Maya looked up at the ancient war machine and smiled. My friends call me Maya, she said. What should I call you? The Sentinel considered this for a moment. This unit has not had a name for 1,358 years. This unit would be honored if you would choose one. Maya thought about it. She thought about everything she had read, everything she had learned, everything that had led her to this moment. How about Vex, she said. It means to puzzle or confuse, because that's what you've been doing to the galaxy for 1,000 years. The Sentinel's eyes flickered, and Maya could have sworn she saw something like amusement in the amber glow. Vex, it said, testing the name. This unit accepts. This unit is Vex. Extraterrestrial Sentinel Part 4, The Human Way. The Galactic Preservation Authority was furious. They wanted Maya arrested. They wanted her tried in a galactic court. They wanted her sent to a prison colony on the edge of known space for the crime of unauthorized activation of a protected artifact. They did not get what they wanted. The problem was Vex. The ancient Sentinel had declared a life debt to Maya, and by law, which was still recognized across the galaxy, that meant it would protect her with everything it had. And Vex had a lot of everything. The Authority's security forces surrounded the ice cave with 50 ships and 300 armed soldiers. Vex looked at them with glowing amber eyes and did not move. It did not need to move. Everyone understood that if the Sentinel decided to fight, 50 ships and 300 soldiers would not be enough. So instead of arresting Maya, the Authority negotiated. It took 3 weeks. Maya spent most of that time aboard the Perseverance, which had refused to leave without her. The captain, a stern woman named, had told the authority that human crews did not abandon their own, and if they wanted Maya, they would have to go through a fully armed colony ship to get her. In the end, no one had to go through anything. The authority agreed to drop all charges in exchange for access to Vex for scientific study. Maya agreed to the study, but only if she was present and only if Vex agreed to each test. Vex agreed, on one condition of its own. This unit wishes to travel with Maya CHEN, it said during the negotiations. This unit wishes to learn about humanity. The authority representatives looked at each other in confusion. The diplomat, a senior official with more tentacles than Maya could count, leaned forward in its floating chair. You wish to study them. Why? They are an infant species. They have nothing to teach a creation of the Empire. Vex's eyes flickered. They succeeded where 17 species failed. This unit BELIEVES they have much to teach. And so it was decided. Vex would travel with the Perseverance, and the galaxy would watch to see what happened next. What happened next was that Vex became the most unusual passenger in the history of space travel. The Sentinel was too big to fit inside the ship, so it traveled alongside, flying through space under its own power. Maya would sit in the observation deck for hours, watching the ancient machine move through the stars. It was beautiful in a way she had not expected, graceful despite its size, powerful despite its age. And every day, Vex would ask questions. How do humans solve problems? It asked one night, its voice coming through the ship's communication system. Maya was eating dinner in the mess hall, surrounded by crew members who had gotten used to having conversations with an ancient war machine through the speakers. What do you mean? She asked. The RI approach problems through biology. They grow solutions. The syndicate APPROACHES PROBLEMS through mathematics. THEY calculate solutions. How do humans approach problems? Maya thought about it. She thought about her own life, about the way she had fixed the atmospheric processors on the ship, about the way she had figured out the Sentinel's feedback loop. We mess around, she said finally. There was a long pause. Please explain. We try things, we guess, we make mistakes, and then we learn from the mistakes and try again. We don't have a system, really. We just keep trying until something works. This is not efficient. No, Maya agreed. It's really not, but it works. How does it work? One of the other engineers, a young man named Tors, spoke up. It's because we don't know what's impossible, he said. Like, they know exactly what their technology can and cannot do. They've been doing it for 1,000,000 years. They've tried everything. So when they see a problem they can't solve, they know it can't be solved. But we haven't tried everything, Maya continued. We haven't been around long enough. So when we see a problem, we don't know if it's impossible or not. We just try to solve it. And if it is impossible, then we fail and we try something else, and maybe that fails too, but eventually we find something that works, or we find out that it really is impossible, but we have to try first. Vex was silent for a long time. When it spoke again, there was something different in its voice, something that might have been wonder. The VELORIANS were very old when they built this unit. They had great knowledge and great power. But they had also learned what was impossible. They had stopped trying certain things. That's the problem with being old, Maya said. You learn too much. You learn what can't be done, and then you stop trying. But humans do not know what cannot be done. Not yet. Give us 1,000,000 years and we'll probably be just as stuck as everyone else. But for now, Maya smiled. For now, we're still stupid enough to try anything. This conversation was recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. It became famous. People called it the human doctrine, this idea that ignorance could be a strength, that not knowing what was impossible meant you might accidentally do impossible things. Many species did not believe it. They thought humans were arrogant or foolish or simply lucky. Maya had gotten lucky with the Sentinel, they said. It did not prove anything. But some species listened, some species wondered, and some species started asking humans for help. The first request came from a research station in the Outer Rim. They had a power system that had been malfunctioning for years. Their own engineers had tried everything and nothing worked. They asked Maya to take a look. Maya looked. The problem was a coolant leak in a subsystem that everyone had assumed was working perfectly. No one had checked it because it was not supposed to break. "Why didn't you check it?" Maya asked the station's chief engineer. "Because it cannot break," the engineer said. "It was a syndicate member, a creature of crystal and light. The mathematics prove it. The system is perfectly designed." "But it did break." "That should be impossible." Maya sighed. "Have you considered that maybe your math is wrong?" The engineer stared at her. The idea had clearly never occurred to it. Maya fixed the coolant leak in an hour. More requests came. A medical facility that could not diagnose a disease. A mining operation that kept having equipment failures. A diplomatic station where the environmental controls were acting strange. Each time, the problem was something that the local experts had decided was impossible. Each time, Maya or one of the other humans looked at it with fresh eyes and found a solution. Vex watched all of this. It asked questions, took notes, and slowly built a picture of how humans thought. "You do not approach problems with theory," it said one day. "You approach them with action." "Sometimes theory is wrong," Maya said. "Sometimes you just have to try something and see what happens. This is dangerous. Trying things without understanding can cause harm." "Yeah," Maya admitted. "We've caused a lot of harm, we've made a lot of mistakes, but we've also fixed a lot of things that no one else could fix. It's a trade-off." "Do you believe it is worth it?" Maya looked out the observation window at the stars. She thought about Earth, about Mars, about all the places humans had gone and all the things they had done. The good things and the bad things, the triumphs and the disasters. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Ask me in a million years." Vex's eyes flickered. "This unit will endeavor to do so." Maya laughed. "You planning to stick around that long?" "This unit plans to stick around as long as you will have it. Humanity has given this unit a purpose again. This unit does not intend to lose that purpose a second time." For a moment, Maya did not know what to say. She had not expected the ancient war machine to care about her or about humanity. She had expected gratitude, maybe, or obligation. But this sounded like something else. This sounded like friendship. "The galaxy is going to change," she said finally. "We're going to change it. For better or worse, humans are going to mess with things that have been the same for millions of years." "This unit knows," Vex said. "This unit is looking forward to it. Even if we break things. Especially if you break things. Some things need to be broken. This unit was broken for 1,358 years, and breaking this unit free was the best thing that has happened to the galaxy in a very long time." Maya smiled. Outside the window, the stars burned bright and endless, full of problems waiting to be solved and mysteries waiting to be unraveled. "Okay," she said, "then let's go break some things." Extraterrestrial Sentinel Part 5, The New Guardians. 10 years changed everything. Maya was not a junior engineer anymore. She was Dr. Maya, chief engineer of the Human Restoration Initiative, an organization that did not exist when she first climbed a frozen war machine with a hammer and a dream. The initiative had started small. Just Maya and a few other engineers, traveling the galaxy and fixing things that other species had given up on. But word spread. People heard about the humans who did not know what was impossible, who looked at broken machines and broken systems and saw problems instead of mysteries. More humans joined. More requests came in. The initiative grew from a handful of engineers to hundreds, then thousands. They fixed power systems and medical equipment, communication networks and agricultural machines. They looked at things that had been abandoned for centuries and asked the simple question that changed everything. Why can't this be fixed? And next to the humans always was Vex. The ancient sentinel had become something no one expected. Not a weapon, not a guardian, something new. Vex was a teacher. It traveled with human teams across the galaxy, watching them work, learning how they thought. And slowly, it began to share what it learned with others. Not just humans, but other species too. Young engineers from a dozen worlds came to study with the Sentinel, to learn the human doctrine, to understand how ignorance could become strength. The VELORIANS had great knowledge, Vex would tell its students. But knowledge can become a prison. When you know what is impossible, you stop trying. When you know the rules, you stop questioning them. So we should be stupid, a young student asked once. We should forget what we know. You cannot forget what you know, Vex said. But you can remember that your knowledge is not complete. You can remember that every rule has EXCPTIONS. You can look at a problem and ask, what if everyone is wrong? This philosophy spread through the galaxy like a slow fire. It did not replace the old ways of thinking. The still used their biological methods. The syndicate still used their mathematical models. But alongside these ancient traditions, a new approach grew. An approach that valued curiosity over certainty, action over theory, trying over knowing. They called it the human way. Maya found this funny. She had not invented anything new. She had just done what humans had always done, what they had been doing since they first picked up rocks and figured out they could use them as tools. She had seen a problem and tried to fix it. But the galaxy had never seen anything like it. On the 10th anniversary of Vex's awakening, the Galactic Assembly gathered for a special session. Representatives from every major species filled the vast chamber, and billions more watched through holographic broadcasts across known space. They were there to hear Vex speak. The Sentinel stood at the center of the chamber, 40 meters of ancient power surrounded by the leaders of 1,000 worlds. Its crystal eyes glowed steady amber as it looked out at the assembly. 10 years ago, it began, its voice filling the chamber, this unit was sleeping. This unit had been sleeping for 1,358 years. 17 species had tried to wake this unit. They all failed. The chamber was silent. Everyone knew this story, but they listened anyway. Then a young human came. She was not a great scientist. She was not a master of ancient technology. She was a junior engineer who fixed atmospheric processors on a colony ship. Maya stood in the human delegation, watching. She had heard this speech before. She knew what was coming, but it still made her heart beat faster. She looked at this unit and saw something that no one else had seen. Not a mystery, not a wonder, just a machine that was broken and needed to be fixed. Vex's eyes swept across the assembly. The RI looked at this unit and saw a puzzle too complex to solve. The syndicate looked at this unit and saw mathematics too twisted to understand. But Maya CHEN looked at this unit and saw a switch that needed to be flipped. And then Vex continued, SHE flipped it. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some of the older representatives shifted uncomfortably. They had spent centuries believing that the Sentinel was beyond repair. It was not easy to accept that they had been wrong. The VLORANS CREATED this unit to protect those who cannot protect themselves. For 1,358 years, this unit failed THAT purpose. This unit slept while EMPIRES rose and fell. This unit was useless. The amber eyes found Maya in the crowd. But now this unit is awake. And this unit has found a new people to protect, not because they are powerful, not because they are ancient, but because they look at the impossible and refuse to accept it. Vex raised one massive hand and pointed at the human delegation. These people have only been traveling between stars for 200 years. They are young. They are foolish. They make mistakes that older species learned to avoid long ago. But they also do things that older species forgot how to do. They try, THEY fail, they try again. They look at problems that have been declared unsolvable and ask, WHY. They look at RULES that have stood for millions of years and ask, what if? The Sentinel's voice grew louder, filling every corner of the vast chamber. The galaxy has become old. It has become tired. It has learned what is impossible, and it has stopped trying. But humanity has not learned these lessons. Humanity still believes that every problem has a solution, that every broken thing can be fixed, that every wall can be climbed. This unit has watched humanity for 10 years. This unit has seen them succeed where others failed. This unit has seen them fail and try again. This unit has seen them change the galaxy simply by refusing to accept that the galaxy could not be changed. Vex looked at Maya. Their eyes met across the vast chamber, human brown and amber. The VLORIANS are gone, the Sentinel said. Their purpose could have died with them, but IT did not, because a young human with a hammer gave this unit a second chance. And now this unit chooses a new purpose. This unit chooses to stand with humanity, not because they need protection, but because they deserve IT, because they are everything the VLORIANS hope to create: brave, curious, stubborn, foolish, wonderful. The Sentinel straightened to its full height, 40 meters of ancient power standing proud. This unit is the last guardian of the VLORIAN Empire. And this unit declares that humanity is worthy of that legacy. The chamber erupted. Some species cheered, some protested, some simply stared in shock, but Maya did not hear any of it. She was looking at Vex, and Vex was looking at her. And in that moment, she understood something she had not understood before. She had not just fixed a machine 10 years ago. She had started something. A change that was spreading through the galaxy like ripples in a pond. A new way of thinking. A new way of being. And it had all started because she had looked at something impossible and said 2 words. Later, after the speeches were done and the assembly had adjourned, Maya found Vex standing alone in the observation gallery, looking out at the stars. That was quite a speech, she said. It was the truth, Vex replied. You didn't have to say all that, about humanity deserving the legacy. The Sentinel turned to look at her. Yes, this unit did, because it is true, and because someone needed to say IT. Maya smiled. She was older now, with gray in her hair and lines around her eyes, but she still carried the same toolkit. She still had the same hammer. You know we're going to mess things up, she said. We're going to make mistakes, big ones, that's what humans do. This unit KNOWS. And you're still going to stand with us. Vex's eyes glowed warm and steady. This unit will stand with you until the last star goes dark, because you stood with this unit when no one else would. Maya reached out and put her hand on the Sentinel's finger. It was a tiny gesture, her small human hand against the ancient machine's massive form, but it meant everything. Thank you, she said. Thank you, Vex replied, for showing this unit what it means to try. They stood together in silence, looking out at the galaxy. Billions of stars, billions of worlds, billions of problems waiting to be solved. And somewhere out there, more humans were working, building, fixing, breaking rules and defying expectations, doing impossible things because no one had told them they were impossible. The galaxy would never be the same. And honestly, Maya thought, That was probably a good thing. So, she said finally, what's next? Vex's eyes flickered with something that looked very much like a smile. Everything, the Sentinel said. Everything is next. Maya laughed and patted the ancient machine's finger. Then let's get to work.